Good morning, everyone. Here's an update on Ukraine for this August 12th, which is my mom's birthday. So happy birthday, Mom. I don't think she actually watches my videos, but whatever. Former Russian leader Dmitry Medvedev has issued a veiled threat to Ukraine's Western allies who have accused Moscow of creating the risk of a nuclear catastrophe within the Zaporizhia power plant. He replied by saying accidents can happen to European nuclear power plants too, basically stating that he's basically admitting that they're doing things that are dangerous around the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and that they're willing to do similar things to other nuclear power plants around Europe. Now, Ukraine has accused Russia of firing at Ukrainian towns from the site in the knowledge that Ukrainian forces could not risk returning fire. It says Moscow shelled the plant and the surrounding areas itself while blaming Ukraine. Russia says that Ukraine has shelled the plant. Now, there's also been reports that Russia has mined the plant as well and has also set up the ability to destroy the plant were it to be overran. Medvedev said, let's not forget, the European Union has nuclear power plants. So he's saying that they will go to that measure in Ukraine or within Ukraine, but also in Europe. So this is very serious. The International Atomic Energy Agency has warned that any kind of destruction or shelling of the Zaporizhia complex could cause a nuclear disaster, and has been unable to arrange the conditions for an inspection after it was hit by shelling. Rather than a reactor core explosion, though, they're more concerned about damage to cooling systems. It's not like they're saying that a missile or a shell is going to hit the reactor and then a nuclear explosion is going to happen. They're more concerned that one of the cooling systems or multiple cooling systems will go down. If a cooling system fails, it could lead to an uncontrolled buildup of heat and a meltdown and a fire that could release and spread radiation similar to that of Chernobyl. They're mostly scared of a radiation release, not of an explosion, according to the Department of War Studies at King's College, who specializes in nuclear-aimed conflict. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations has said the country does not support a proposal to create a demilitarized zone around Ukraine's occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. That's because Russia is using the nuclear power plant as leverage against a possible Ukrainian counterattack that would likely have a better than 50% chance of succeeding in taking Kherson back. And because of that, they're leveraging their control of the plant as well as executing destructive actions against it to show they are serious, which is kind of counterintuitive when you think about it, because that plant borders very closely to what Russia wants as its terrain, including Crimea. So when you look at the way the trade winds would work, this would be very much destructive against their own forces. But as we've seen before, the Russians are quite brutal to their own troops, and they see them largely as cannon fodder, especially those that are not of necessarily even Russian origin, but are a part of the Wagner group or the Syrian troops, or even this mythical 100,000 North Korean troops that may be coming. As long as you're not within the Moscow, St. Petersburg proper regions, Putin and the Kremlin largely don't care about you in Russia. So they're willing to sacrifice you so that they can get their territorial gains. In doing so, they're causing unknown danger to people and the area surrounding the Zaporizhia power plant. So we'll keep an eye on that. Powerful attack on a Russian airbase in occupied Crimea happened earlier this week. Now, a lot of you probably have seen this. The consensus is it was the work of Ukrainian special forces that were acting as observers on the base. The attack destroyed 8 or 9 Russian aircraft, which actually would be the single greatest day of loss, or the greatest single day loss for Russian-made aircraft since Iraq lost 40 Russian-made aircraft during day one in the 1991 Gulf War. Now, that's not just in air combat, that's in cruise missile strikes, bomb strikes, and as well as air-to-air attacks. Now, this attack has a profound impact on Russia's long-term ability to maintain control of southern Ukraine. Basically, it puts everywhere to Russia, it puts everywhere they occupy within range now. And this includes Kherson, where Ukrainian forces are hoping to launch that counteroffensive. It's Also, Crimea is also a key logistics hub for Russian operations in the south, and it's also a transit point for troops and equipment to be moving into the more pointed areas of fighting, specifically around Kherson, where Russia's trying to reinforce itself. Now, the Crimea Peninsula being in play makes Russia rethink how they can guard or defend against these types of attacks. It thought it could operate unimpeded, it could continue to just use that as a stream to move forces in. Now it's in question, and Russia's having to rethink its ability to not only resupply but refit, retrograde broken equipment and injured people, and it's going to change the calculus entirely for Russia. In fact, it probably will change the way Russia conducts operations going forward, leading to probably a longer tactical pause. Now, speculation continues on how the attack was carried out. Russia is claiming that it was an ammunition depot that accidentally blew up, which in and of itself would show gross negligence on the part of Russia. So, I mean, par for the course. But satellite images show that there's 3 craters and the weapons holding bunker is still intact. Others say that the Ukrainians now have U.S. ATACMS missiles given to them in secret. These are the ones that the Ukraine has wanted for a long time. They're very long range. They're very powerful. But the U.S. has refrained from giving them these missiles for fear that it would be able to launch into the Russian country, not just Russian-occupied Ukrainian territory. So, not sure on that. Others are saying that they're using their own Ukrainian-developed Grim heavy missile launcher, and this is probably the most likely scenario. This is a missile system that's been in development since 2013, but Moscow presumed it wasn't operational even though Ukraine had fielded 2 by 2019. Now, the Grims use a 2-missile system that have a range of 280 kilometers, which is twice the reach of the Ukrainian Army's current missile system and 4 times the range of the U.S. HIMARS. So we know it wasn't HIMARS that hit these airfields. However, it could just be a clever cover for the use of more secretive advanced weaponry given to Ukraine by the West. So there's no way to know how this worked. For its part, the Ukrainian military is being very hush-hush, and rightfully so. They aren't even claiming responsibility for the attack, even though Zelensky gave a nod to the attack at one of his nightly chats. So it could be a cover. It could be a newly developed Ukrainian missile system. Either way, they're not going to say, and that's a good thing. So just have to keep an eye out for more of these types of attacks going forward. Now, a potential new gas connection between Spain and France could be ready to operate in less than a year. This would help wean much of Europe off of the energy need requirements from Russia. The German chancellor said that it could take about 8 or 9 months, and it's going to be a joint effort. The France-Spain connection would require laying segments of pipeline to connect the Spanish grid to the French one, which would then connect to the German grid and be more integrated, but also distribute gas a lot more readily, especially coming from the Middle East to Germany rather than relying on Russia. And then finally, McDonald's will start reopening some of its restaurants in Ukraine in the coming months. It's a symbol that the war-torn country is returning to some sense of normalcy. And most interestingly is the 6 months ago when McDonald's closed in Ukraine, it continued to pay its 10,000 McDonald's employees. So good for McDonald's. I hope they have success in their reopening in Ukraine. And it was really cool of them to continue to pay their people, even though they were not making burgers and fries and stuff for everyone. So meanwhile, Russia's new McDonald's tasty period is still gross. So, and by the way, those of you that want to come back with McDonald's is gross, you're not going to convince me McDonald's is actually one of my favorite burger joints in the country. And I'll fight you over that. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, have a good rest of your day, everyone.